That was probably one thing I would teach my younger self as well is lead with no. When somebody asks you to do something or a client comes in, don't automatically assume it's going to be a yes. Lead with no. I mean, and then celebrate the losses more so than the wins because you've just saved yourself so much grief by deciding that probably wasn't the client for you for whatever reason it may be. And don't be afraid to walk away from it.
We're here with Brandon Thornton, John, and JJ, generational business, family business, and an expert tax strategist. Brandon, why do you do what you do?
The main reason why I do it was that when I was traveling around in a different industry at the time, we had two family friends and clients that passed unexpectedly that were also business owners as well as clients that didn't have a plan of continuity in place.
Wow.
So when I initially came home, it was to kind of jump straight into the aspect of helping make sure people had all of the box checked before that life event comes down the pipe that you're not expecting and can potentially cripple your business or your finances or both.
And you're third generation in this business?
Yes, sir. This is 76 years in business. My grandfather started this around 1950 when he came back from World War II and was doing it with a number of different things, as I've come to find out over my adult life, between being having a doctorate, being a special police officer for the city of Fort Worth, being a CPA, being a pilot. He had a number of pursuits, but this is the one that has carried forward into his legacy. So we're making sure we keep up.
And you can explain to the audience how on earth anybody could be the grandson of the founder and actually carry it on and expand it dramatically.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I always tell everybody I took the scenic tour to get here between, going to college for kinesiology and, completing a minor in psychology and health promotion and thinking I was going to go down that path. 2008 took a pretty hard turn to try and find something that wasn't as dependent on discretionary spending. It's fine. I mean, I was working as a personal trainer. It's like, hey, where'd everybody go? Like nobody was coming around anymore. But that led into physical therapy because it was backed by insurance. So I didn't have to worry about, losing anybody. And then while I was there, one of my patients, oddly enough, was one of my first bosses in oil and gas. And at the time had tested to take, potentially pursue firefighting. So when I came home to take over the business, went ahead and enrolled in Fire Academy, just number one, for a little bit of personal satisfaction, but also because the side of the business that my wife and I were using as our source of income wasn't enough to sustain a full household. So she took a consulting position with a client that needed an in-house personnel. And I stepped into her role. And then while studying for firefighting and attending my courses, then just kind of put my head down and tried to grow it. So in the 15 weeks that we were in the academy, we went from about 5 to 7 bookkeeping clients, which is what we had, to about 35. And then at that point, when I got out of the academy, I got licensed as a structural firefighter for 2 years, but I was left with an option, be gone every third day and try to do this at the same time and all the other things that will come with that, or put my head down and continue to focus on this. And I decided on the latter.
So for those who don't know what an EA is, why don't you explain what an EA is and what your firm does?
I am an enrolled agent. So my license is overseen specifically by the IRS, and the test that is given for that credential is specifically just in taxation. Individuals, businesses, special tax, and special filings for nonprofits, trusts, estates, things like that. As far as the IRS is concerned with that credential, we are on equal ground with a CPA and attorney, with the main exception being that we don't formulate opinions on public audits, which is if you are doing municipal work or government contracts or anything that requires bonding or anything like that requires audited financials, then we contract that piece out, which...
So would it be fair to say you help people pay less taxes without getting to know an auditor on a first name basis?
Absolutely. And the way we do it's kind of unique, I would like to say, from what I've seen and participated in over the 10 years that I've owned the business, is we've put together and collected a series of connections and opportunities for our clients that allow us to swing a bigger stick, is the way I always put it.
What's the most common mistake you see people make in terms of clients or soon to be clients?
As their business goes, thinking that they can still wear all the hats, mainly around the finance piece, either hire somebody, contract with somebody, or find a firm or a professional to help you. That gets you out of the biggest pitfalls the fastest, because once you get to certain numbers or certain levels, then we've had clients in the past that were spending, a full day every week trying to run up their AR and their bookkeeping. And it was something that, that's 8 hours of revenue generating time that they could be out beating the street, finding new business or collecting revenue or taking time off if that's what they want. But we could probably get it done for you much more efficiently and it's already geared up and ready to drop onto a tax return for them. So it's much more effective.
Much like us when it comes to retirement planning. We always have people, how many times have you already retired? And usually the answer is once or twice, depending upon their expertise, and say, this is not our first time with this. Plus, if we make a mistake, you can turn to your wife and go, I need to go call those guys. So it really gives you some guilt free decision making opportunity. And today, do we try and help people have fun and still have money? And how do we do that?
Yes, definitely. With being intentional about your lifestyle that you're wanting to live. And that can also be if, say, travel is something that you really enjoy doing, which John and Susie definitely do. And then Brandon, I heard recently, also takes his family when he goes on trips as well, is to be able to set money aside in advance. So then when you actually go on the trip, that's why that money was saved and what it's there for. So then as you spend it, you're not concerned about really what you're spending because that's the purpose of that allotment of money.
Well, that's where the collaboration aspect of what we're doing now is much more important. That we are very, very intentional and very, very specific about the fact that everything that we do with the clients now is meant to be team based and roundtabled. So that way, if they're already working with an advisor, they're already working with a banker, they're already working with an attorney, they already have somebody that's doing their books and they need help on the tax side or vice versa. We take the piece that's ready for us. And if it grows from there, great. If it doesn't and we can stay in our lane, more than happy to do so. The biggest thing that we're aiming for now is the value over volume equation that every business owner runs into, regardless of industry, is that I could pack as many 1040s in here as I could possibly get if that were the pursuit. But for us, it's more than that. It's the value that we bring to each of the clients that we work with and trying to get that deeper level detail, like you were just saying, where if, during conversation about their taxes or during conversation about, their business and the trajectory of their business, they say that they're concerned about retirement or they're not sure what retirement's going to look like for them, or they feel like they're overexposed because they don't have a will or a trust or they don't have life insurance. That's where flags start going up for me. And it's not directly for me, it's for the referral partners and strategic partners that we have to know, okay, well, we need to go sit down and have a conversation with an outside party if you don't have somebody for that. And if you do, I'm really curious to speak with the one you do have, because why are you asking me and they're not proactively getting in front of you about this
Yeah,
when
we're
that
very
was what
big
their goal
on
was?
collaboration with folks, and we have periodically gotten the big whiteboard out and sketched out a case for folks.
It's also the importance of knowing your clients and having the relationship with them. So if they show up one day in your office and they just don't quite look right, is to stop right there and not jump right into the numbers, but just be like, everything okay? What's going on? And to be able to be there I mean, yes, we bring strategy and value like that, but sometimes it's just you're a person standing in front of me and I care about you. What's going on versus jumping right into whatever the topic was planned.
Well, it brings the humanity into professional services, and that's the biggest part of it. Is I think that's what, between systems and policies and procedures and growth and focusing on different areas, revenue or sales or whatever it may be, is where a lot of professional service businesses end up going, not maybe not completely down the path, but start down a path they realize they don't want to go down when
Mhm.
people start feeling like they're just being treated as a name and a number rather than a person or a client or, a human.
And I'm guessing just like this morning, JJ said, oh, gee, I got a referral from North Carolina, that you have a national practice. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The one big difference I would say from the EA side comparative to a CPA or an attorney is we are not overseen by a state board. We're overseen nationally. So we can practice in all 50 states with no extra permissions or registrations or anything like that. And we just recently acquired a firm in North Carolina. We're looking at several all over the state of Texas and a few more in North Carolina as well. So we're going to be continuing to expand. We're focusing in those two areas initially, but with the anticipation that we will be creating a national footprint very quickly.
And there's some wonderful folks in North Carolina having vacation there, and there's fabulous restaurants and old timey Southern hospitality, depending upon the towns. And if you lived in Texas for a very long time, and I have since 1967, it's refreshing to get some old timey hospitality as opposed to the
Yep, my business partner was out there. We acquired the firm around the 10th of June, and he went out there, or went out there on the 10th. We closed on the 12th, and he was out there up until 4 or 5 days ago. So probably almost a month and a few days. And with the way he was talking about how relaxing it was and calm and things like that, then it's like, hey man, you're you're still coming back, right? Like we can't, we can't just, donate it to the cause on the North Carolina side. But yes, he definitely made comments about that, is that comparatively to the DFW market, like it's slower, it's more relaxed. Not that it's any less professional or anything like that. It's
Mhm.
just there's not people blowing by at 90 miles an hour just trying to make it from A to B like there are in some of the metro areas here. So I'm looking forward to the at least 10 days that I'm taking up there towards the end of August to go work with the team.
So have you been blessed with a family and children as well?
Yes, sir. Been married 13 years as of 4 days ago. And then we've got a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, both girls. Yeah, I mean, we try to do everything together as best we can. That's part of the whole reason why I came home. And my wife homeschools both the girls. And the requirement when I got back into a little bit more travel this time around, because I had done it with some previous teams and partners that I worked with, and it was all just me, that whenever I go somewhere now, I want 4 tickets instead of 3, or 4 tickets instead of 1. So that way Heather and the girls can come with me, and the case coming up in North Carolina here pretty soon, we're actually taking the dog with us. So it's going to be a family affair for sure.
And your children were homeschooled as well.
Yes, the homeschool girls all the way through. After I ended up joining my wife at an amazing 2-day-a-week school that's kind of a combination of parents at home in addition to an in-class instruction where my wife teaches. So, but yeah, it's been spectacular to spend time together and be intentional about what they're learning. And as I imagine your family does as well, when you want to take a trip or do another activity that's not on your traditional, whatever, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. school schedule, you can actually go do it and work your schedule the way you want it.
Well, then for us, it was the fact that you can play to their curiosities a lot more that way. It's not just this very strict curriculum. It's, oh, we've noticed Lucy's wanting to look at stars and planets more. So we're going to go to the planetarium and we're going to go to this other event that's coming up. And it's just much more constructive for their learning, in my opinion. But not an educator, and I'm not down, talking down on public education. For our situation, it's worked out much more effectively for us. So given the fact that when Lucy was 5 and her introduction into the education system was going to be in the full throes of COVID, we
Yeah.
made the decision that we were going to homeschool. She's neurodivergent, just like both her parents, and to tell hyperactive ADHD kid, sit down, wear this mask, don't touch your friends, and recess is canceled, it was not going to work. I was going to be getting some phone calls if we did that to somebody.
Jump back into the clients things and the amazing work that you do. What is one of your favorite client stories, or maybe two?
I have a couple. We had one that we'd worked with for a number of years that had a really successful year and was left kind of holding the bag when we got ready to run up projection on what he was looking at for tax. It was going to be about a $1.2 million liability. When we sat down and looked at it, that there were some opportunities there for how we approach this. And by the end of it, instead of writing 1.2 to the government, he wrote, a few $100,000 into a very specific strategy that he met all the requirements for, and paid, maybe another 75 or $100,000 in fees, but his net savings on it was about $630,000. And my pursuit with this, again, is that I try to keep the other professionals in mind at every turn. I'm here specifically to make sure we pay the tax we feel like we owe, not to wipe it out entirely, not to not pay your side or contribute. It's bring it back down to reality. You've been working your tail off to try and build a successful business, and to turn around and get hit with a $1.2 million bill. That hurts.
Mhm.
And it could potentially be crippling for some if they're not prepared enough for it. Allowing us to kind of get out in front of it and be more proactive with it has also allowed for the clients to prepare for other aspects of their long-term, long-reaching aspirations, whether it's retirement, exit, legacy, generational wealth, whatever it ends up being. My whole goal with it's that we're writing the checks we want to write instead of writing the checks that we're being told we have to write.
And there's no doubt that you're proactive, just like we are, in terms of when someone has a business, go, see, how's your year going? And then they'll say, oh, it's going great. That's nice. Do you have a number to go with that? And I found, despite being a CPA for 50 years, that the EAs that I've run across have been incredibly knowledgeable and really on it, because it's an uphill battle for credibility, because everybody and their dog thinks a CPA is brilliant. And I wish all CPAs were brilliant. JJ and I spent about a year and a half interviewing CPAs and found about 2 or 3 different firms in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that we thought were doing a good job. And that's not to cast dispersions on CPAs in DFW. When I mean by doing a good job is someone who has a real proactive conversation with clients, not just bangs out a tax return and strategically helps them plan their future and has a life themselves, meaning with
Mhm.
a big game hunter or somebody who collects cars or whatever, but has something beyond the, yes, I'm really good with math. Yes, yes. So is my third grader. Because
Yeah.
that's basically all the math you have to do when it comes to, with all due respect, accounting. So, what's the
And
greatest
that's
compliment a client has ever given you, if you don't mind taking off your humility hat?
I mean, that same client, I'm still working very closely with them. There was a couple of situations that came up from discussions and kind of ongoing conversation where I felt like they were being underserved, and just
Mhm.
apples to apples sat them down with some partners, and they decided that they were going to be better served with the partner rather than where they were. And it's no, again, not like you said, not to sling mud at the prior professional. They weren't doing the other components that they needed.
Mhm.
And that same client, when we had that meeting to sit down and discuss that, I was walking he and his wife out, and was telling me how he has enjoyed it. He's appreciated the time that I've put in, and that he hopes we can continue to do this, and that he hopes this can be a case study for us to show how this can work and how
Mhm.
it can be beneficial for the clients that we work with. And my biggest thing with it is I told him that at the very beginning, I'm going to do what you asked me to do, which is to take care of you guys and make sure everybody else is too. And I feel like this is a big step in the right direction. And I appreciate the vote of confidence. And I will probably take you up on that. But this is for you guys. This isn't for me. So my biggest thing is to be a resource.
Biggest question I get, blessed with white hair and a white mustache, is John, I hope this is not a retirement call.
Yeah.
Meaning you retire. It's honest to God, JJ might retire before I do because I still enjoy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. My mom and my dad are both the same way. On top of being third generation, both parents, my stepmom, both my grandparents, they were all license holders. So I guess if you kind of played it out a little bit, it was going to happen to somebody. But both my dad and my mom are the same way, is that they enjoy the work, they enjoy the clients, and they don't ever want to quit unless somebody makes them. And I'm never going to tell them to.
Mhm.
And my watchword is always be curious and pass that on to anybody who's heard the word curious before. And for a lot of people, being curious is a growth action. I can't imagine not being curious about everything, much like a little kid, but that's just
Well, that's kind of what led us to where we are, is the curiosity aspect of it. Because when I came in, I was just doing books, and it was like, okay, well, what else can I do with this information? And then that led into some FP&A and some light comptroller work and some light CFO work for a couple of clients here and there. And then when I got my tax license, it was okay. Well, now I can sign the tax returns and file the tax returns and do all the traditional
remind
stuff.
everybody what FP&A means.
Sorry, financial projection and analytics.
Thank you.
And yeah, the questions just grew from there. It went from, can you file my tax return, to what else can we deduct, to how else can I pay less in tax? And as I started kind of venturing down the path, is where virtual family office service and family office service and, subject matter experts and all the other fun incremental bits and pieces that make that up started coming to light. And it's like, okay, well, then we need to start building a network of our own so that we can leverage these for our clients. Whether or not it's to the benefit of the firm, it's to the benefit of the client. And if we do good for the client, we do good for what we're building, then it'll come back. Even if it doesn't mean something today, it'll mean something tomorrow.
Why don't you remind us about how far away from going on the path straight to becoming an EA you went in terms of your earlier degrees, earlier experience, and what have you, which gives you a very unique point of view of the human experience.
I mean, I've been on both ends of it. My family built and ran businesses in North Richland Hills when I was very young. So got to see what it takes to take something from an idea to a fully functioning business that, takes care of your family and creates income. But I've also seen kind of where the struggles and pitfalls of that came from. And I've had pretty much at least a part-time, if not a full-time job since I was about 10 years old because of all of this. So when it comes to somebody feeling apprehensive about coming into professional office, it's not a stuffy, three-piece suit office. It's meant to be more relaxed and conversational, because I've been the guy out there swinging a hammer, and I've been the guy sitting in here, with a pencil and a calculator. I've been on both ends of this. And I don't ever want anybody to have any apprehension or qualms about calling and asking the question, because the question's not the problem. The
And at
problem
one
is
time, you were a personal trainer, so you know about health and fitness.
yep, personal trainer for, I don't know, 3.5, 4 years in college. I got my certification through the Cooper Institute shortly before they
Really?
changed their test. So I have a lifetime certificate from the Cooper Institute in Dallas. I actually got to hear Kenneth Cooper speak, which was really
Mhm,
interesting because,
mhm.
you're sitting there and he starts off by saying, the definition of aerobics is, and then goes on this big long tangent. And he says, I know that because that's the definition I gave Webster's when they called me in 1976 to ask what the definition of it was. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to start listening a lot more now.
And I remember talking to the guy that actually sponsored Dr. Cooper to come to Dallas to go do that, who actually ran a pipe company, comedically enough.
Hmm.
So there's a nice long, and one of my hobbies in life is to know the backstory on things, to find out what the history is, find out what kind of coconuts this person is trying to sell you before he makes his presentation.
Absolutely. But did that, and I was a minor member in a boxing gym at the time. And then when I went into physical therapy, kind of let that piece go to the people that were more active in it. And then in oil and gas, I did everything from production testing, completions, production. I didn't do frac work, I didn't do rig work, and I didn't do anything once it goes off the site. And that was about it.
The reason I'm asking you those questions, all kidding aside, is to let everybody know that this guy has a broad background. So it's not your typical sharpening his pencil accounting type, but someone who's actually loaded trucks, unloaded trucks, been in the field and done everything there is and watched the joys and heartbreaks of building a brand new business and then making a successful business. And anytime somebody can be the third generation in the same business, you can almost go to the University of Monterrey in Mexico, and who actually has a department for family-owned businesses, all kidding aside. So this is not an unusual thing. And the oldest business on earth is actually a Japanese company that makes worship centers, and it's been family-owned for 1,500 years. So family
Wow.
businesses are alive and well, contrary to popular belief. JJ, why don't you ask a couple more questions?
Yeah, definitely. The one fun thing that you commented on earlier was about how your own professional development along the way, which shows the value that you bring. And the fun thing is, just like other experts or other tax people that work in the tax field, it's kind of sometimes we'll stay at the beginning base level of getting the job done, where you realize, okay, I got that down. What's the next level? And what's the next level? And you kept going beyond that to what you're building, continuing to build now, and the value that you bring. So that you've demonstrated that in your own practice of how the clients can level up working with you. So with that, what is one thing that people misunderstand about your profession?
The biggest thing that I would say that a lot of people don't have a full grasp of is it's not just plugging numbers. It's not that you get your tax documents and then we just carry that information over to a tax return, especially if you're a business owner. There's many different ways to do that portion of the accounting, and it all affects you differently when it comes to tax. And it's a matter of finding the right professional that can work with you in a way to maximize the potential of what you're doing on the tax side and create efficiencies for you over just copy and paste. That, the other thing with it is that people expect the quick gratification nowadays. That with the family business being 76 years old, we've created some efficiencies. Just because we're good at what we do and we can be swift doesn't mean that we're, not better than or equal to anyone else. It's just, that's why we do what we do. And that's sometimes created some issues when it comes to the rate or things like that, because, well, you only had to do that. It only took you this long to do it. It's like, well, number one, we don't bill hourly. We do it on a flat fee, and that's why. And, it's okay then. I mean, if you want it quick, it's the quick, fast, and cheap scenario.
It only took 76 years to become this efficient.
Yeah. And that's what I've tried to explain to a couple of people, is that you're not paying for the period of time it took to do it. You're paying for the 76 years of experience that we've accumulated over time to make us capable of doing it in that period of time.
And again, to underscore that further is, one, this is not my first rodeo. It's not the first time I've run into this situation. And three, I've got three different solutions, and I'm going to recommend the one that actually works best for you. And it's not that I anticipated all this, it's that I've been through this, and everybody and their dog has the same basic problems. Have a nice day.
Yeah. And that's, I guess that would also be probably one of the top ones, is that everybody feels like their situation is the ultra unique, this is only happening to me scenario. And it's like at any given time, unless it's something very, very, very niche or very, very specific, there's 100,000 people in the United States. They're probably going through the exact same thing you're going through right now.
Unless you're Elon Musk and you're actually getting a rocket to go up and land in the same spot. Yeah, that was a unique situation.
Well, that goes to what John said a bit earlier about it's not our first time helping someone retire. It's someone else's maybe first time retiring. But as far as the same thing with Brandon, with the people that you're working with, your clients, you've seen the different scenarios of whether someone's a W-2 or has their own business and all the other much more complex things than that. And you'd be able to go, okay, I've seen this a time or two. Maybe you don't say that, but then you're able to apply your expertise to the situation.
Well, that or they'll come in and it'll seem like it's a fairly unique situation, but we'll think back and we've done this with a client 7 years ago. So we'll just go pull the information from when we worked with that client, make a reference point for it. And in a lot of cases where we've had to write letters of representation or,
Mhm.
basically document our findings when we were doing research to state our claim in the event that it were ever questioned, we still have it all. And that is the one thing we tell all of our clients is that when it comes to filing your tax return, we'll work in the gray with you
Mm.
because it's
Okay.
not tax tax is not all specifically black and white, and that we will be creative to the extent that we're allowed to be based on what the tax code says, but we won't put anything on your tax return that I don't think I can stand flat-footed and defend and know that I will win going into it. And it's because we won't allow you to go to the extent where it puts you at risk, and we won't allow you to do things that we know are automatically going to put up a flag, because we don't want to be put in that scenario, and you definitely don't. Because at the end of it, you're going to be the one writing the check, and I'm just going to be the one, answering the questions. And we do our very best to make sure that everybody's protected when it comes to that.
And what's the worst mistake y'all have made in the short, happy time that you've been practicing as an EA?
I mean, there's human error stuff happens, but that's where, again, the human element comes in. We don't pretend to be robots. We don't, the pursuit is always perfection, but the expectation is excellence, right? So when we do the work and there is maybe something that got missed or transposed or something like that, yeah, hey, we made a mistake. Sorry, we'll own it. Here's how we're going to fix it. Let's take the pressure off both sides, and we're going to take care of this.
And
And
what's the secret of your success as a loving husband and father?
well, for me, it was when I was traveling, we had no option other than to learn to communicate effectively because I was 230 miles away. So working in San Antonio or Pennsylvania or anything like that, that the communication component of it came to the forefront very, very, very quickly. And then, here recently, it's been the professional and personal development that's come from, the networking connections and the professionals that I work with to find other components where it's like, okay, yeah, that's something I hadn't thought of. And I'm going to see about deploying that in my own life because I feel like that would be a benefit to me and those around me.
Brilliant.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
That's a really good one. I mean, it's just not to be cliche or anything like that, just the whole pursuit of don't spend so much time making a living that you forget to make a life. And that was specifically why when, as soon as we found out Heather was pregnant with Lucy, we scheduled every appointment from that day to the birth. And it took one person telling me they weren't going to make any promises for me to be able to be home for those. And I was out.
I laugh because before that became popular, I was the world's worst employee when it came to being pushed away from home life. And the silliest thing was, guys said, all right, you can come to Southern California, and work in my office for a week. I'll loan you my brand new Ferrari and you can stay on the beach for a week. And he thought that was a treat. So honest to God, I'd rather be home, but since I have to do the work anyway, okay, I always look forward to staying on the beach. And and it saved me a gazillion dollars because I never had to buy a Ferrari because I realized after having one for a week, I didn't want a Ferrari.
Yeah, those Italian clutches will get you.
And it's fun being able to experience. I know, look at your kids' ages. My oldest played soccer, so I would go to soccer practice, run around with the other kids, and just have a good time with it. It was kind of funny that like 10-year-old girls were surprised I could outrun them, which was quite humorous. But it was just fun to get to participate with the kids in their sports.
Well, for me, it was, and I will give it to my parents. As busy as they were, my mom did it by herself for a number of years, and my dad has a small firm in Decatur. They were always there for the important things. That was never in any question. But there were times where the pressure was on them, like because they wore all the hats. They had to take all the responsibility. There were times when they were busy that I remember, you know, coming home from school and they're sitting at the kitchen table for the second shift to work, the night shift to try and get things caught up or to complete things. And that was the biggest thing that I didn't want my kids to remember is that every single time I came home from work, it was, hi, how are you? I'll be in my office. I want to do the fun things. I want to run around the yard. I want to go take them for walks. I want to go have trips. I want to do things. And that's where I think a lot of the growth has taken place for us, both for me personally and professionally, as well as the firm, is that I'll openly tell you, I'm probably not the world's greatest tax preparer. I'm really good at the strategy side and I'm licensed to do the preparation. But my goal is that I hire all the people that want to pursue the same thing, have the same aspirations, and are more qualified and capable than I am, but want to be a part of the culture. And then you'll be happy that they're on the team because they are the world's best tax preparer. But I would rather go find that for our clients and for our team rather than trying to force myself into that position and all the extra requirements they're going to come with.
Brilliant. And what's the name of your firm?
Thornton Tax and Financial Services.
And you have a national practice, but it's headquartered in which town?
Right now we're headquartered out of Hurst, Texas. That is going to be where the majority of it will stay, at least for the short term. We're not going to leave the DFW market. We have enjoyed it too much, and I've made it as far as about 10 miles down the road from where I grew up. So don't plan on really going anywhere. We might have some other fun little pockets here and there, but right now we're in the DFW market, and then we're in the North Carolina market on the kind of the northeast side near Asheville, and just plan on kind of expanding on both of those initially to keep everything kind of close enough that when we're visiting one pocket or another, that we can kind of make the rounds rather than scattering it to the hillside. Now every bit of additional revenue goes to traveling expense because we got to get to all of them now.
My real estate experience as a budget director for a real estate company, we found that the most efficient real estate was within 20 minutes of the airport locally. Because they never knew going to pop in. And one of my duties was to go what I call kick bricks. So I would just pop up into town, announce myself, and go take a tour and find out which regional guy or gal knew where the properties were and which did not, and get to interview the people on site and then find out who was stealing from whom. So it's nice to have real boots on the ground experience. We also have discovered, last joke on that, with real estate professionals, the institutional types that wear cufflinks never did walk on a roof to see the condition of the roof. So you just have to know who to hire and who not to hire as a consultant. Some people get great presentations. Yeah, have you actually done this work, or you just have an MBA?
Well, I mean, it's like hiring anything else. Is in oil and gas, when somebody shows up that's a company man and he's got on dress shoes and a suit, I mean, he's probably not the one that's going to get out there and teach you how to swing a hammer. So you want somebody that knows what they're doing. Not that they're less qualified, but they were very well credentialed. But when it came time to actually the practical application, and it's the same thing in any industry, is that you can learn about it and talk about it all you want, but the practical applications where the real work's done.
Well, that's your personal trainer who takes care of himself and is also someone that you want to emulate, not someone who just knows the book knowledge. Is also a way to we can look at that. So if you could talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him?
At that point, I was still very focused on the wrong things. I would say that I wasn't until I was closer to 30 where it was less about the things and more about the experiences that the things will break, things will go away, they'll become obsolete. You'll have the experiences.
And since you were lucky enough, like JJ, to be a family member of a home that's kind of split up, how did you cope with that during your youth and your?
It was a little rough. My stepfather at the time was not the nicest of gentlemen, and if anything, I learned a lot from the standpoint that he was one that, I learned several things. One of them was that the difference between splitting your personal and your professional problems, that you can't let work chase you home. And number two, that respect is earned, not demanded, because he was one that he would walk in the room and thought he could just demand respect because of who he was and what he did. And respect given is respect earned in my book, that it's on the merits of your character and the merits of your actions more so than your words.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I love the analogy that I give when we used to work with students vocationally, and I would tell them, what matters more, if I tell you how much I care about you or I punch you in the face? And of course, they all laugh. And
Yep.
they're like, well, obviously, the actions behind what I do is going to speak louder than the words that I speak. So same thing in family life, same thing in outside the home.
Well, that's what they said in, one of the networking events that you and I were both part of is when you speak with somebody, they're going to remember, verbal communications, 7% of the overall communication that's taking place when you're interacting with somebody. So the words don't matter.
It's the tone, it's your body language, and it's such a disappointment for those of us who really studied content to realize that they're just going to notice, gee, you have a spot on your tie. And if you do have a spot on your tie, make that your opening. Go, by the way, you might have noticed that I have a spot on my tie. Okay, now let's get on to what we're really here for and just kind of go on with it. So if you have 38 seconds to go ahead and tell everybody everything you want to know about you and your business and how you can actually help them, what would you say?
Main thing is that if you feel like you are underserved by not only your accounting professional or other professionals, or you feel like you're overpaying in tax, or you're not sure where to turn to, we'd love to be a resource for you. My main thing is making sure people end up with the right people. It's whether the work comes to us or not directly from that, it will come eventually through putting that out, because I'm not an overly spiritual person, but I do believe that the universe loves balance, and the good you put out is the good you get back. So I refuse to be somebody that's so caught up in what I'm doing that I refuse to help, because then nobody's going to help me.
And I'll add that business turns out to be a team sport, not an individual sport.
Well, then you make a client carry around information from two or three different professionals and try to be the one to wrap their mind around it on their own, and watch how quickly they go find somebody that has a team-based model.
Even if you're an engineering firm, kids, you actually need to have advisors around you. I talked to an engineer's wife this morning about how funny it was and how stubborn he was. And I thought, yeah, we all know that about him. Have a nice day. So in terms of that, you just have to realize what language other people speak, use the same terminology, same picture words, and what have you, same tone, same pacing, and see if there's a match. And if not, find somebody who actually matches better with.
Well, and that was probably one thing I would teach my younger self as well, is lead with no. When somebody asks you to do something, or a client comes in, don't automatically assume it's going to be a yes. Lead with no. I mean, and then celebrate the losses more so than the wins, because you've just saved yourself so much grief by deciding that probably wasn't the client for you for whatever reason it may be. And don't be afraid to walk away from it.
Yes, if I don't like you and you don't like me, we're probably not going to make good dance partners.
Or if, we decide we're going to do this and we sign a proposal and get an engagement started, and within the first week, you're outside of scope and asking us to do things that we haven't committed to, like, it's probably going to be a rough ride. So why don't we just call it now before that first bill finalizes?
That's great. What a joy it has been to chat with you. Make no mistake about it. And congratulations on taking your earlier life and making it into a really successful life and building a family and business around it. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it, and I'm really, really looking forward to what probably the next 5 or 10 years is going to turn into for us, because it's going to be a little bit of a whirlwind. Um, I get to do it with two of my best friends because they're now my business partners. Oddly enough, met them through networking, and get to take my family with me. So that's the two things I was concerned about, is those in my circle and those that wanted to go with me, and we're gonna have fun doing it the whole way.
And JJ discovered that networking, if you stick with it, actually does pay benefits, but it's not on the first 2 weeks unless it's just a lucky stroke that will spoil the rest of your experience.
Or somebody that was out there specifically looking for one thing, like, and it's really hard to find those. But yeah, it's the longevity of it. That's where the person that's my happy place. Is that's why now that I have partners, I'm in specifically business development and strategy. That's all I do. I don't have to wear all the other hats, because Tim and Katie take care of all the other things. And we have a very, very strong team behind us to support us. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm so excited. And, I wake up bright eyed and bushy tailed instead of just kind of rolling out of bed and grumbling most days, that I get to go do what I love now. And
And for an enrolled agent to have so much energy and be enthusiastic on a Friday is speaks volumes. Seriously, speaks volumes to how well your business and life is running.
well, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's to the point now where, people are kind of starting to seek us out. It's taken, to go back to the networking component of it. Even the networking connections I made in the beginning takes 2 or 3 years for them to really start firing off big for us. But that's where along the way, then we just kind of let them know, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's what we're doing. Let me know if you can help with it, if we can help with anything. And once they start kind of they see the proof of the action rather than the words, then they start coming back and making the big referrals, is where it's fun.
Much like JJ becoming a certified financial planner, it gave him a lot more confidence and scope and knowledge, and people realized you're serious about it.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, for all intents and purposes, nobody's ever asked me to see my license. Nobody's ever asked me to see my degree, anything like that. They want to see that you can do what you say you're going to do. And you do that for enough of the right people. And then all of a sudden they bring in more of the right people, and you're way out in front of where you thought you'd be, or, not having to put in as much effort as you thought you were going to have
Only
to get
once
there.
did someone ask to see my certified public accountant certificate. No kidding. And I had to make it, it's a big certificate because they were looking to beef up their balance sheet of advisors within their company. And it was a major company on the New York Stock Exchange or whatever. And I thought, seriously? You can't just call the Texas, whatever it is, and verify that who I am, for God's sake? And they said, nope, we really want to do this. And I thought, Okay. So that's my one funny story on someone actually asking to see your certificate. Have a nice day.
And I've
Yeah.
I've considered framing my University of Texas diploma for years, still haven't. It's in the cabinet right over here. As far as the CFP designation, that went on the wall pretty quickly after it arrived, because it was much more professional development and work that was put in versus college many years ago.
And you're lucky to have waited to get that, because when they first started that for CPAs, we thought that was such a joke in terms of what they were doing. And as a CPA, I could have just walked in and taken the exam without any preparation whatsoever. I didn't say pass, but I said take it, because they were dying to get credibility. But now it's been up and running for about 40 years, and it does have credibility. And I can recall doing seminars for the society in terms of our national level and local level, particularly on ethics, which is a hoot and holler to see the questions that you get asked about ethics. But that's another story.
Yeah, it's hilarious to me that they have to ask those ethical questions. It's like, okay, basically just don't be a giant turd and, take advantage of people. And it's like, yeah, I got it. I'm not doing this for that piece. But no, but that's where, I think part of the disparity between what people expect from a CPA and an EA too is probably from the fact that for a long time they transitioned over to requiring a master's, or they were consistently raising the bar of what it took to qualify to take the tests. And now that the enrollment's been low and the people that have been obtaining licenses has dropped, they're trying to bring that back down to reality. So you can do it with the bachelor's now. And instead of having to have 2,000 hours, as of, I think, a month ago, they dropped it to 1,000 hours of applicable professional experience, if I'm not mistaken. But they're not opening it up to the masses, but they're definitely making it more attainable for the ones that have proven themselves that want it, without saying, hey, now you got to go back and pay, for 60 additional hours of secondary education as a 45-year-old just because you want to get your CPA. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and literally, my wife and I went down to a ceremony celebrating people who had been CPAs for 50 years, and basically secret handshake to the 700 kids and some who were not kids anymore who got to be certified public accountants. So it was very encouraging in that way. But the requirements are Mount Everest in terms of what it takes to get either one of those licenses, and the CFP.
Oh, absolutely. That's where, at one point or another, when I first got into the virtual family office stuff, they were like, why don't you get life insurance and health license? And I was like, okay, well, look at the test. That didn't seem that bad. What else do I need to see about looking at? And they're like, oh, a series, 63, 65, and maybe a 7. And I started looking at those tests, and I was like,
Then all you have to do, and I had a discussion about this with the guy that works for Fisher Investments, comedically enough, and he had sold his real estate company. And he said, yeah, some of my buds are CPAs, and they're also licensed to sell securities. I said, I gave up my CPA practice to keep my license available and whatever, in case I have to answer a tax question. But there's just too much information. I don't care how smart you think you are to actually really understand financial advice and investment planning, insurance planning, and taxes, for God's sake. Yeah. And I'm going to go talk to somebody who really thinks that's the most interesting question they've been asked all day.
well, you don't give yourself the opportunity to learn all of that efficiently. And then you're throwing yourself in front of the bus for not only one, but several different governing bodies to now have oversight over it, so that when you inevitably make the mistake because you can't be the master of all three, then you're going to get run over one way or another. It's just jumping from one busy lane to another, and which type of vehicle is going to hit you at that point. And that's why I've put a hard line in the sand that I look at everything through the tax lens. I'm going to tell you what it'll do from the tax side, and we're going to look at everything that I have a knowledge base in from a cursory level. But if you want to go anything below surface level, we're going straight to the professionals that provide that, because I am not the one, and I am not crossing that line.
With that, it's a great conclusion. I'm not crossing that line. That's a great conclusion. So congratulations, and thanks very much for laughing at the funny parts.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me. So look forward to hopefully doing it again in the future.
Thank you, Brandon.
And we will.